hormonal imbalance. And then I'm going to list the symptoms of a male having a hormonal imbalance. So for a female, early periods, do you know that normal is 16 to 18? And you hardly ever hear of that today. We're getting young girls that are getting their periods at 9 and 10. There's something very wrong, and there's always a reason. Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. Proverbs 26 verse 2 states that the curse causeless shall not come. It's Old English. It basically means no problem, no curse happens without a cause. So why are young girls getting their periods at the age of 9 and 10? Another symptom of a hormonal imbalance can be very heavy periods, very painful periods, premenstrual tension, tender breasts, growths in the breast, breast cancer, uterine cancer, cervical cancer, osteoporosis, thyroid problems, depression. These are some of the symptoms of a female having a hormonal imbalance. What about a male? Symptoms of a male having a hormone imbalance can be low sperm count, can also be penile dysfunction. The current figures are in Australia are 40% of men under the age of 50 are struggling, over the age of 50, are struggling with penile dysfunction. There's something terribly wrong. Also, for a male, it could be prostate problems. Too much of the female hormone can cause a man to be effeminate. Too much of the male hormone can cause a woman to be masculine. So these are some of the symptoms of men and women having a hormonal imbalance. What I want to do this evening is I want to show you how the monthly cycle happens. And then I'm going to show you what throws that monthly cycle out of balance. And then we're going to end by showing you how you can restore the balance. That's the good news. So let me begin by showing you how the hormones are made. Hormones are made from cholesterol. Did you know that cholesterol is not an enemy? Did you know that cholesterol is a very important fat or lipid in the human body? And tomorrow when we look at heart disease, you will discover that cholesterol causing heart disease is a myth. Let me give you the title of some of the books I've got in my library at home. The Great Cholesterol Myth by Johnny Bowden. The Great Cholesterol Deception by Dr. Peter Dingle. The Great Cholesterol Lie by Dr. Dwight Lundell. The Great Cholesterol Con by Dr. Malcolm Kendrick. We're running out of names. But tomorrow we'll look at the true cause of heart disease. Cholesterol is a very important lipid. If someone's cholesterol levels are too low, it's going to interfere with the production of their hormones. From cholesterol, our body makes pregnenolone, and from pregnenolone, the body makes progesterone. As you will see as we go through this, progesterone is a very important hormone, and from progesterone, all the other hormones are made. So in our description of what happens every month, progesterone is going to be wearing a green outfit. I'm going to explain it like a dance because it is like a dance. Different players come onto the stage at different times of the month with this hormone cycle. From progesterone, the body makes estrogen. From progesterone, the body makes testosterone. From progesterone, the body makes our adrenal hormones. So we're going to have a look at this monthly cycle. And it's a 28-day cycle. And the first day of the monthly cycle is the day that a woman begins to menstruate. And when a woman begins to menstruate, progesterone, which is going to be the green, is very low. Or we could say progesterone is backstage, so to speak. Day one of the monthly cycle, estrogen is also low. Now, one of estrogen's main roles in the body is that of a cell proliferator. Cell proliferator means causes massive cell growth. And at this time of the month, from day approximately 7, estrogen levels start to rise. Estrogen becomes the star player in this monthly dance of the hormones. As a cell proliferator, let's have a look at the effect that estrogen is having. And we're going to go to the stage where the monthly cycle or dance is played out, which is the reproductive organs of a woman's body. This is the uterus, these are the fallopian tubes, they're the ovaries, that's the cervix, this is the birth canal. So at this time of the month, under the action of estrogen with its massive cell growth or cell proliferator action, it's causing massive cell growth in the lining of the uterus, once again causing the blood nest to develop. Estrogen is also causing eggs in the ovaries to fully develop. Estrogen is also causing a form of lubricant to be released in the birth canal. But by day 14, maybe 15 in some women, a fully developed egg bursts forth from the ovaries. The filaments on the end of the fallopian tube pull the egg up, and the fallopian tube is ever moving like this, pushing the egg up, up, up. Now the hole where the egg bursts forth develops a blister. And that blister is called the corpus luteum. I have written it in green because it's the main site of progesterone production in a woman's body. Remember progesterone, the key hormone, the precursor for the others? Can you see how important it is for a woman to release that egg every month? Because when she releases that egg, it maintains progesterone levels by the development of corpus luteum every month. So by day 14, 15, we now get a rise in progesterone. Progesterone now becomes the star player in the dance of the hormones. And because we've got our blood nest, we've got our egg, we've got our lubricant, there is no need for estrogen anymore, so estrogen's given the message that it can now go backstage. So what effect does this rise in progesterone have? Progesterone has a ripening effect on the lining of the uterus, putting the finishing touches on the uterus. Progesterone, as the happy hormone, and that's one of its nicknames, happy hormone, at this time of the month, with such a rise in progesterone, it causes a woman's mood to be heightened at this time of the month to the point of increasing her sexual desire at this time of the month. But progesterone has another effect, and that is on the cervix, this little gateway from the birth canal into the uterus. Let me magnify it and show you. So looking from top down, the cervix looks like a little soft cushion, you know, with a button in the middle, but that button is a little hole. So looking from side on basically looks like this, with that little mucus plug there. But under the effect of progesterone at this time of the month, those little soft cushiony bits come up a little tighter, and a special form of lubricant is released around the cervix, and this lubricant is very thin and stringy and profuse at this time of the month. And it's specifically designed to facilitate the entry of sperm from the birth canal up into the uterus. So you can see the stages set for the entry of man. Did you know that between 200 and 500 million sperm are released with one ejaculation? The sperm cell is the smallest cell in the human body. And you can see why God made so many to be released, because sometimes up to half come straight back out. And if the sperm meet this top cervix, very difficult to gain entry, but they do because they're so tiny. But if the sperm meet this cervix, this lubricant literally grabs that sperm and shoots it up. And it's got a long journey. And some of the sperm go down the wrong road and they basically die and get absorbed away. But some go down the right road and they've found their prize, which is the egg. I saw a photograph one day of 15 sperm all trying to gain entry into the egg. And the covering of the egg looks like this. And what the sperm has to do, it has to nudge its way through into one of the folds. And it's not easy to gain entry. But once it gets in, all the other folds shut tight and a chemical is released to kill off any other sperm that might try and get in. Occasionally, two get in at exact the same moment. That's when the twins share the placenta. What an incredible piece of machinery our body is. And as time goes on, as the technology gets more intricate, we find out more and more of the incredible creation that we live in. And by the way, isn't it a miracle any of us are here? When you consider everything that has to be in place for the conception of a new human being. Sperm is an alien to woman's body. And when sperm enters woman's body, her immune system rises to attack. But when sperm goes through the prostate gland of a man, it takes on an immune suppressant property. So that when woman's immune system rises to attack, the immune suppressant property of sperm knocks back woman's immune system so that sperm survives. But woman's body has memory. And every time her husband's sperm enters her, her immune system rises and says, oh, it's all right, it's husband. We'll stand back. But can you imagine how dangerous it can be on a woman to have multiple partners? And can you imagine how dangerous it is in the area of anal sex? Because of the immune suppressant property of sperm. And so, what happens if conception takes place? If conception takes place, progesterone levels soar 200%. And don't we often say when a woman's pregnant, she's just blossoming? That's because progesterone levels are so high. What if a woman did not feel like that? It would indicate that her progesterone levels are low. And we'll look in a minute at why that would be so. There is only one progesterone, but there are three estrogens. There's estrone, and estrone is given the name E1. There's estradiol, and estradiol is given the name E2. And there's estriol, and estriol is given the name E3. Now both estrone and estradiol have strong cell proliferator action, whereas estriol is called the delicate estrogen, and it's estriol levels that rise in pregnancy. So what happens if there's no conception? Then by day 26, the message is given to progesterone to drop down. By day 26, estrogen drops totally down. And when both these levels drop down, the blood supply to the uterus is cut. And when the blood supply to the uterus is cut, the blood nest comes away And we are once again at day 1 of the monthly cycle. That's what the monthly cycle should look like. Unfortunately today, it doesn't look like that very much. Why? We must ever have this on our lips. And you might ask, why have I got Living Springs Retreat there? It's because they sell my book, Self-Heal by Design. So even though we've sent 14 boxes to Amazon, they've just sold out again. So I'm sorry it's not on Amazon. But Living Springs Retreat sell my book. I meant to say that earlier, but I need to rub it out. I need more room. But that's a retreat in Alabama that sells the book. So why? What's caused an imbalance? Number 1. In 1957, the contraceptive pill was introduced to women. The 1960s is sexual revolution. Wanted to be able to have sex without having a baby. But there are some health writers that are claiming that it's caused the mass murder of millions of women. Why? What is the pill? The pharmaceutical companies grow acres and acres of Mexican wild yam. And that wild yam contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And diosgenin in a laboratory can be converted to progesterone. It's called progesterone because it has the identical molecular structure of our own progesterone that our body makes. Now, the pharmaceutical company cannot patent that. That's why they don't like sodium bicarbonate. They can't patent that. They can only patent something new. So what they do is they add a few more atoms in one area and come up with a synthetic estrogen. They add a few more atoms in another area and come up with a synthetic progesterone. And these synthetic hormones are what are in the pill. Now, up until the 1990s, the pill was just straight synthetic estrogen, but it was causing so many problems. You see, as a cell proliferator, this is causing breast cancer, it's causing uterine cancer. So they had to change things. And so from about the 1990s, the pill not only contains synthetic estrogen, but also synthetic progesterone. It's called progestin or progestone. Has that helped? No. Because this synthetic progesterone competes with the receptor sites on the cell for the natural progesterone. So how does the pill work? Well, a woman will take the pill for 3 weeks a month, and then she'll take a sugar pill. So when she takes the pill, these synthetic hormones are fed into that biochemical pathway that our body uses to make hormones, and it causes a disruption. And the body thinks, what's happening? Must be pregnant. And because it thinks it's pregnant, it doesn't release the egg. And because it doesn't release the egg, the woman doesn't fall pregnant. But if the ovary doesn't release the egg, then corpus luteum's not made. So can you see what's happening? So here's progesterone and here's estrogen. That's what it should be like. But month after month on the pill, no ovulation, no corpus luteum. Where's progesterone levels going? They're going down. And month after month with its synthetic estrogen, where's estrogen going? Now we've got a problem today, sadly too common. It's called estrogen dominance and progesterone deficiency. I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. We can't live without water, but you've probably heard about the devastating floods that Australia had last year, where whole towns went underwater. You probably heard about the devastating fires in Australia in 2019. I arrived home to a black property. So, but right at the moment, my husband has the fire lit every night because we're in winter at the moment. So you see what I mean? I liken estrogen to fire and water. Good slave, bad master. Estrogen is necessary. That's what causes the skinny young girl to develop into a beautiful, shapely woman. But if estrogen levels remain too high, then the beautiful, shapely woman gets out of shape. But what is disastrous with this high estrogen as a cell proliferator, it's causing polycystic ovarian syndrome. It's causing cysts on the ovaries. It's causing fibroids in the uterus. It's causing polyps in the uterus, in the birth canal. It's causing growths on the cervix. It's causing growths in the breast. It's causing breast cancer. It's contributing to uterine cancer. And high estrogen opposes thyroid function. How many ladies are on the pill in their 20s and now in their 50s, they've got thyroid problems? Progesterone also stimulates bone-building cells. So when you don't have enough progesterone, it's your osteoporosis, as we'll define more in a minute. And where's happy hormone gone? Way down here, there's your premenstrual tension. I said to a lady, do you have premenstrual tension? She said, no, I just hate my husband for a week every month. She's got it. How many ladies are on the pill in their 20s and now in their 50s they've got depression? Postnatal depression is caused by lack of progesterone. Can you see the massive problems this is causing? And now the ladies, because it was the baby boomers that it was first tried on. Some say, oh, it's more refined now. Let me give you a story of a young woman I know. She's in her 40s, had her babies. Her husband doesn't like using a condom, so he wants her to go on the pill. So she tried the pill. Oh, her hormones went all over the place. She became anxious. She started heavy bleeding, had to stop the pill. And the doctor said, I'll try something else. We'll just put a patch in your arm. We'll sew this patch. And it's a lower dose of the pill. Do you know, within 1 week, she started accusing her husband of having affairs. And he ended up saying, get that stick out of your arm or I'm leaving. I want my wife back. So she went to the doctor and she said, you've got to get it out. He said, no, you haven't had it in long enough. She said, if you don't get it out, I'm just going to pull it out. Gee. Anyway, he got his wife back once those hormones were taken out. And now he doesn't mind wearing a condom. As you'll see, it's not the whole month, it's just at the fertile time. We'll look at that in a minute. One young girl had the patch put in her arm. She's only 15. Everything leaked out in 2 weeks. It was supposed to slowly release over 3 years. For 10 months, she bled non-stop. Do you know, you can't play with this? My daughter, she was in the car with all her friends. They were going somewhere. She's in her late 30s. And they were talking about the pill. And the girl said, when I go travelling, I don't take a break. I just take the pill non-stop. Then I don't get a period and I enjoy my travellers. My daughter was silent. And they said, you don't take the pill, do you? Why not? My daughter said, it's like this, buy now, pay later. You have that saying here? Buy now, pay later. Yeah. So what's happening to the women who took the pill in their teens and their 20s? It's now 30 years later, 40 years later. They're going through menopause. What's happening? They're having hot flushes. What's that? High estrogen causes capillary dilation. All the blood rushes to the skin. The husband knows because all the blankets get thrown off the bed in the middle of the night, then they get pulled on again. they've got weight gain, they can't lose weight. If your estrogen levels are high, it's almost impossible to lose weight because it's got a one-set mind. It's going to cause those cells to multiply. In Australia, the Cancer Foundation have stated that estrogen is a known human carcinogen. So if estrogen levels are high, it's just going to feed cancer. What else is happening to those menopausal women? They have no desire for sex, and when they have sex, it's very painful. They're depressed because their progesterone levels are low, so they go to the doctor. They're of all women most miserable, and their husband's secretary's looking better all the time. Bit scary, isn't it? So the doctor gives her hormone replacement therapy. More synthetic hormones. But the flushes stop. Why? Because the body thinks it's pregnant. So instead of putting the energies to the skin, it puts it internally. The amount of women that have told me 6 years after being on HRT, a lump appears on their breast, they have a test, they have breast cancer. They go to the doctor, he takes them off HRT immediately. Why? He knows. He knows it can cause breast cancer. So you say to the doctor, why do you put a woman on it if you know? He said, well, she was suffering and it brought her relief. That is true. But you ask the lady, what would you prefer, breast cancer or hot flushes? What's the answer? Bring on the flushes. I'll just have a shower every couple of hours. I'll get a black lace fan. But at least I'll live. So the doctor says, well, she was suffering and it brought her relief, and not every woman will get breast cancer, and that's true. It's like playing Russian roulette, though. I'm not interested in playing Russian roulette with my health, my life. But also, because the pharmaceutical company can't patent progesterone, they don't push progesterone. But there are many women and men who have a hormonal imbalance, but they've never been on the pill and the mother's never been on the pill. But by the way, what's happening to the daughters of the baby boomers? These are the ones that are getting breast cancer in their 30s. These are the girls with endometriosis. Too much endometrium is too much of the lining of the uterus because of too much estrogen, and it starts to wander all through the abdominal wall. And then every month when the blood nest bleeds, these bleed, but they've got nowhere to go. And it causes excruciating pain. One girl said to me, my doctor says that when I go through menopause, I won't have endometriosis anymore. She's 25. What's this, 25 more years of suffering? Why won't she have it when she goes through menopause? Because the hormones levels drop. So the estrogen levels are less. And it's estrogen that's feeding it. And so what the doctor will advise is he gets a electric needle and burns out all the little pockets. Has that fixed everything? If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. If you don't stop the cause, you will never have a cure. So these are the daughters of the women who are on the pill. What about the sons? These are the sons with low sperm count. These are the sons with penile dysfunction. These are the sons that don't like the fact that they're so effeminate. You're almost not allowed to talk about that in Australia, but I'm just giving you the basic physiology. So, is there something else? Because there are some people who are suffering from these things who have never had exposure to the pill, or their parents. Well, what causes a chicken to be fully developed in 5 weeks? It's the growth stimulant. And in Australia, it's against the law to give growth stimulants to cattle. But we had a cattle farmer's wife do our program. She said once a month they knock on our door and they push the growth stimulants and they show us exactly when to stop giving the growth stimulants so it's not picked up in the blood test. Mine on the blood test, but it's in the tissues. So, meat. Well, what about fish? Well, when you got 80% of women on pill or HRT, they go to the toilet, the sewage goes to sea, the fish are feeding on the sewage, and in some fish farms they're given growth stimulants. But they're finding with many fish today, they're having reproductive problems because of the hormones that are coming through in the waste that they're feeding of in the rivers and in the seas. If it's in the meat, it's in the product. If it's in the chicken, it's in the egg. We had one young man do our program and he said, I got two friends, two mates, and their parents own a chicken farm. We call it a chook farm, but you call it chicken farm. He said, one mate or one friend is 6'6", the other's 6'4", and their father's 5'10" and the mother's 5'2". Where did this height come from? Well, because their father owns a chicken farm, what are they eating morning, noon and night? Chicken, eggs. But I've met some people who've been vegetarians, their parents are vegetarians, never been on the pill. There's more. And that is plastics, exposure to plastics. This morning, sorry, we didn't talk this morning, I'm at our last class, we looked at the chemical fabrics, especially women, their bras, their night dresses, their underwear. So much is made out of polyester, acrylic and nylon, especially when a woman's exercising and she's wearing these. There's a shop in Australia that just sells women's sportswear. And so I went in and I'm looking at the bras and the leggings and the singlets, and I could not find one made out of natural fibre. So these women are exercising, they're getting hot, the pores are opening, and their skin is absorbing those chemicals. And a lot of plastic today contains something called nonylphenol or bisphenol A. And in the molecular structure, estrogen contains a phenyl ring. And that phenyl ring unlocks the door to get the estrogen into the cell. So when we have exposure to these plastics with their phenyl ring, they're called estrogen mimickers that has an estrogenic effect in the body. You can get plastics that are BPA free. I'm looking at water bottles. I think there's a water bottle there and a water bottle there that are plastic, but the hard plastic. And you'll probably find it says BPA free. Often that light blue plastic like that, there, it's got BPA free, so it hasn't got the phenols in them. So you can get some plastics that are BPA free. So be careful of your exposure to plastic. Plastic's handy stuff. I think it's impossible to totally eliminate it, but please be mindful of your clothes. Be mindful of what you put your food in or store your food in. One of the worst is a hot soup into a plastic takeaway container. So try and put your leftovers in glass, in ceramic, stainless steel. There's the account of a Dr. Anna Zotto, who's an endocrinologist who was growing breast tissue in flasks in her laboratory. Whenever she fed it estrogen, the breast tissue enlarged. She stopped feeding an estrogen and it did not grow. One morning she came in and it had grown overnight and she hadn't fed it any estrogen. So she began to investigate, as every good scientist does. And she rang up the people that make the flasks. She said, "Have you changed the flasks?" They said yes, and she discovered that the new flasks had nonylphenol in them. So the phenol in the plastic in the flasks were feeding the breast tissue. How many bras are made out of polyesters and nylons? I know in America there's a brand called Fruit of the Loom, is it, or Fruit of the Womb? And they sell a lot of, 95% cotton. 5% doesn't bother me if it's just a little bit, so it's got a little bit of elastic in it. But these are so many hidden areas that we're being affected, even to the point of affecting our hormones. Chemicals. One of the worst chemicals regarding hormones is glyphosate or Roundup. It affects the hormone of the plant. If you eat potato that's not organic, I can just about assure you it will have glyphosate in it, because they kill the tops of the potato plants with Roundup so they can harvest. But you have much more access to organics here in the US than we have in Australia. So you have Sprout, Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. We don't have that. Little might have a health food shop. And in the city, you have more access to organics in the country. Even though it's all grown in the country, it all goes to market. We're not 100% organic. We do the best we can. And that's all you can do, the best you can. But try and get the chemicals out of your home as much as possible. So you look at most babies today, they wear disposable diapers, you call them. But you look in Trader Joe's, you can get them made out of starch. Or a lot of mothers are going back to cloth diapers. And you look at what babies suck on toys. A lot of them are plastic. I used to get wooden ones for my babies. And we call them dummies. Do you call them pacifiers? My daughter in Wisconsin, it cost her $15, but she found them made out of rubber. And even the bottles, if a baby has a bottle, it should be a BPA-free plastic bottle and ideally rubber teats. So if someone you know has a baby, buy them some starch diapers, wooden rattles, a rubber pacifier, and when they open it, it'll be a strange present. And they'll look at you and you'll say, "I'm concerned for your baby's sexuality." See, if we think we've had hormonal problems in the past, you have a look at the next generation. It's quite scary. Because a lot of people are not aware. There's a lot of deception in advertising, so be very cool. So your herbicides, insecticides, I guess you can put that with your chemicals, all of these are having an effect, little by little, like the dripping tap on a stone, on our hormones. And these, they're called xenoestrogens, or estrogen mimickers. And these estrogen mimickers have the strong cell proliferator action that you'll find in your estrogen and your estradiol. So the question then arises, what about soy? What about the soybean? So let me show you. There are 3 cells here with 3 estrogen receptor sites on them. Xenoestrogen, which is the estrogen from herbicides, insecticides, chemicals, plastics, it's 20,000 times stronger than human. So how big's that? It's huge. Well, how big's human? That just sits in the cell like this. But it is 20,000 times stronger than plant. So how big's the plant? It's just a tiny little thing that just slips into the lining of the receptor site. So these these chemical estrogens, are 400,000 times stronger than the plant. So what's the plant? That's your soy. So here's the soybean grown in America today. It's called Roundup Ready because it's been genetically modified to resist Roundup. And a farmer told me this. He said 5 times before market, the whole field is sprayed with Roundup. That is a dangerous soybean. Number 1, because it's been genetically modified. Number 2, because of the amount of chemical estrogen mimickers, Roundups, that are in it. You see, the natural estrogens that are in the soy are so minor. And remember Psalm 104 verse 14 where the Bible says God gave herbs for the service of man. This is what the plant estrogens do. They come to the cell and they knock. They say, excuse me, you need me. And the cell says, no, we've got enough. And so the plant estrogen says, well, I'll just sit at the door. And where that's important is that this xenoestrogen cannot get into that cell because the natural estrogen. But if it knocks and says, do you need me? And the cell says, well, actually we do, it'll come in. Medicine calls it synergism. That's what plants do. They work with the needs of the body. A friend of mine did a thesis on the soybean, and people ask her, is soybean good or bad? She's got a 1-sentence answer. She said, God made it good, man mucked it up. End of story. But in America and Australia, they don't have to put on whether it's been genetically modified. But you can buy organic because an organic farmer will not use genetically modified seed, otherwise he loses his organic. So you can be 99% sure that if you buy organic soybean, that it's safe. It's a pity to throw the soybean out because it has some of the potent anti-cancer properties of any plant. There were no soy allergies till it was genetically modified. But there are people with allergies even to organic soybean. And if they have an allergy to that, you know what my answer is? Well, don't eat it. There's many other things. But another plant that is high in the natural estrogens is red clover. If someone has had breast cancer, they're told that they are to go on tamoxifen. You've heard of tamoxifen? And they're told that they have to be on for 5 years. And what tamoxifen does, it blocks the receptor sites against estrogen. Another acknowledgement that it is estrogen that feeds it. But tamoxifen has side effects of its own. But the red clover will do what that tamoxifen will do with no side effects. Because the tamoxifen just blocks whether you need it or not and has side effects, whereas the red clover, it will come along and knock on the door. And if the cell doesn't need it, it'll sit there and again block that receptor site from the dangerous estrogens. So we have far more to fear from the chemicals than the natural, or the naturally occurring estrogens that you will find in specifically the soy and the red clover are probably the highest sources of natural estrogens. So how do we turn this around? Number 1, eliminate. If you don't turn the tap off, you're still going to be mopping up in the other corner. Eliminate the pill and HRT. So what about birth control? Well, sex is two-part, contraception should be two-part. How often is it one or the other? How often is it the woman has her tubes tied? Do you know most women that have their tubes tied end up having a hysterectomy later in life? And if the man has a vasectomy, they still don't know the full results of a vasectomy, and how many men that have vasectomy now have prostate problems. You can't start chopping the human body and there not be an effect. But God has a way for us to determine when we're ovulating or not. So a woman's body will give her 3 signs. One sign is her temperature will change. So it is as simple as the woman taking her temperature before she gets out of bed every morning. She will find her temperature will do this. It'll go up and down a little bit, then it'll drop and go up onto a higher plane. And that drop and up onto a higher plane is her sign that she has begun to ovulate. And most women will ovulate around day 14. But this allows her to define it. Sometimes it may be 13, sometimes it may be day 15. My daughter, when I saw her recently, she lives in Tasmania, she's 40, she said, "Mum, look at my phone. I've got an app on my phone that tells me when I'm safe and when I'm not safe." She puts her temperature in every day. That's one sign. The second sign is that the vaginal mucus changes. So when estrogen is high, the lubricant in the vagina is probably not as profuse, it's white. But when progesterone is high, then the lubricant becomes very profuse and it's clear and stringy. There's definite changes. The third sign is that her cervix changes. So it's a matter of a lady checking her cervix every day. Now at first she's got nothing to compare it to, but as the weeks and the starts to see that these 3 signs usually will come together this week here. So usually it's this 3rd week here that a woman will begin to ovulate. But the 3 signs would allow her to define it. So she says to her husband on the 2nd week, "I'm safe." On the 3rd week, "I'm not safe." And so that 3rd week, he either masters the art of withdrawal or wears a condom. And the 3rd week, she can say, "I'm safe." So the husband usually only has to wear or do some sort of protection for that 3rd week. I read an article about Italian men, how the Italian men have always prided themselves in not getting their women pregnant by mastering the art of withdrawal. And I was interested in this article because so often it's all put on the woman. The woman has to have an IUD or the pill or have a tubes tied. But in this case, the men had taken control and took it as their responsibility to protect their women from getting pregnant. Interesting thought. And I told her the story of this young couple where the man didn't want to wear a condom, but after 2 months of having his wife's hormones go all over the place to where he's being accused of having affairs every day, he wears a condom now. It's much easier to... Remember, it's not every time, it's just for a period of time. So my daughter Jessica and her husband, they were married for about 3 years, I think it was, before their first baby appeared. How nice. They'd mastered the art of knowing exactly when she was ovulating. And how nice they have given birth to three young girls who are now teenagers and adolescents with no hormonal problems, because neither the mother or the father had ever been on the pill. How nice. So just as we're finding that this is getting worse every generation, we can stop the causes and actually turn things around so that every generation can get stronger. So eliminate the pill and HRT. Eliminate meat and its products. Now, if someone likes eating meat and its products, it really must be organic today. It's really not safe. Personally, I choose to be on a plant-based diet. But as a plant-based diet, I must also be cautious that I eat organic food, because plants aren't totally safe. So, but organic food, of course, doesn't have the herbicides, insecticides. And eliminate the plastic as much as possible. Get the chemicals out of the home. You might say, Barbara, I'm going to have to change my whole wardrobe. I'm going to have to clean out my kitchen cupboards. This is going to cost a fortune. Now, remember second-hand shops. You can get some nice clothes there. And also, white vinegar, sodium bicarbonate. And if you go to Trader Joe's, they have alternatives. My daughter had her washing machine fixed recently, and the guy said to her, do you know washing machines are so efficient today, you could wash your clothes with nothing but water and they'd come out clean. Now, if I had a man who was digging in the garden and his clothes were very dirty and sweaty, I think I'd want a bit of detergent in that. But, of course, that's extreme. But you don't need much washing detergent. Probably most machines would clean the very nicely with half a teaspoon, just a tiny little bit. So you'll save a lot of money by just doing it lightly. We had a guy do our program. He had a big ginger beard and big curly ginger hair. And I washed my hair with sodium bicarbonate, washed my beard, my body with sodium bicarbonate, and I washed my clothes with sodium bicarbonate. He said, that's all I use. So that's quite cheap too, isn't it? But us ladies like a nice scent. So what you can do is put a drop of lavender oil or put a drop of eucalyptus oil in to give it a nice scent. And please don't forget the sun. No, I'm not selling clotheslines. But it's time to get clotheslines. Get the clothes out in the sun. It gives a beautiful freshness to them. So eliminate the cause. Number 2, our liver, as we saw, can detoxify us from environmental poisons. It can also eliminate excess estrogen. So number 1 is turning the tap off, and number 2 is stimulating the liver to release excess estrogen. And estrogen can come down one of 2 pathways. The hydroxy 2 pathway means it's out. The hydroxy 16 pathway, it can come in 100 times worse. So we don't want the hydroxy 16 pathway. So what I'm going to do is give you a list of herbs and foods, we'll call it Highway 2 and Highway 16, that stimulate Highway 2, inhibit Highway 16. Cabbage. So it's just as simple as eating something from the cabbage family every day. Cabbage family contain a plant chemical called indoles, and indoles stimulate Highway 2, estrogen's out, and inhibit Highway 16. So that's as simple as eating something like cabbage or broccoli or cauliflower or kale or bok choy, sauerkraut. Sauerkraut's a great food, as we'll find out when we look at the colon, to maintain the healthy bacteria. B vitamins, particularly B1, sorry, not B1, B6, B9 and B12. They're the 3 B vitamins that stimulate Highway 2, inhibit Highway 16. The highest source of the B vitamins is found in your raw nuts and seeds. But if someone has a hormonal imbalance, they may initially need to take a supplement. Licorice, if you have high blood pressure, forget the licorice. Flaxseed. Flaxseed is high in lignans, and these lignans stimulate highway 2 and inhibit highway 16. Remember what Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine, medicine be your food, and he didn't know the detail we're looking at today. So number 1 is stop what's the cause. Number 2 is stimulate the liver to get rid of excess estrogen. Number 3 is Australia sells a cream called the Anna's Wild Yam Cream. And the Anna's Wild Yam Cream contains a plant chemical called diosgenin. And when this cream is applied to the skin, the fat cells take it up and it stimulates the pathway that your body uses to make progesterone. And when you stimulate progesterone, that automatically brings the other hormones back into balance. If you boost progesterone and your estrogen's high, it'll bring it down. If you boost progesterone and your estrogen's low, it'll bring it up. It's a balancer. In America, you can buy natural progesterone cream. But if you keep putting something into the body that the body makes, it gets lazy. Whereas the beauty of the Anna's Wild Yam Cream containing the diosgenin is it stimulates your body to make its own progesterone. That is the superiority of it. Pardon? How to use? One finger dip. This one finger dip is just up to the nail bed. And then you apply it to the inside of your arms one time, to the abdomen another time, the chest another time, the inside of thighs another time. So you alternate the sites of application. It's applied every morning, every night, twice a day. If you think you're going to forget, put it on your pillow. You can't put your head down at night. There's something there. Or put it next to your toothbrush, or put it next to your bed. Apply it first thing in the morning, apply it last thing at night. Still menstruating, she stops at period time. So she applies the cream for the 3 weeks of the month where she's not menstruating. That's the easiest way to remember. If a woman is no longer menstruating, she just chooses 1 week of the month where she does not apply it. Yes? If the hormones are all over the place, you just keep to that cycle, because that's one way of getting it back into balance. So the lady says that she had breast cancer which was estrogen and progesterone positive. Did you know that there is no toxic dose of progesterone? There definitely is a toxic dose of estrogen. In fact, the doctor that first blew the whistle on what I'm sharing with you is Dr. John Lee. And Dr. John Lee wrote a book, I think in the 90s, called What Your Doctor May Not Tell You About Menopause. And he had a page in there showing all the effects of progesterone and all the effects of estrogen. And they're almost opposite. You can't overdo progesterone. Can you have too much happiness? No, you cannot. What did they say of Patch Adams? His problem was he had excessive happiness. But there certainly is a toxic dose of estrogen. Yes?
Could you repeat when to use the cream?
The cream is used twice a day for 3 weeks a month.
3 weeks a month.
Yeah. How long would you use the cream for? Sometimes the hormones have been out of balance for 20 years. The good news is it won't take 20 years to get it back into balance, but it might take 1 or 2 years. 1 jar will usually last 3 months. So Because my lecture on hormones has gone a bit viral online, and the Anna's Wild Yam people were unprepared for the onslaught of it being bought. So at the moment, it's out of stock, but they said it will be available early June. Well, we're in early June. Okay, this lady just got hers last night. I know my daughter who lives in Wisconsin, she has a back order of 85 jars for her clients. So it's starting to be available. What age would you begin? I would not begin a young girl on it and she was menstruating. But I met a 92-year-old lady who was on it for her osteoporosis. You see, the bones are made of two lots of cells. One is osteoclast. And osteoclast cells take away old bone. And they are stimulated by estrogen. Osteoblast, think of a blast of new bone. Osteoblast cells create the new bone, and it is progesterone that stimulates these. So can you see what's happening if someone has high estrogen and low progesterone? Too many osteoclast cells is too much old bone is getting taken away. Progesterone deficiency, there's not enough progesterone, so there's not enough osteoblast cells to replace the old bone. So this hormone imbalance that we're seeing, and we've been looking at all the causes, is a big contributing factor to osteoporosis. And yet that's not often assessed, is it? So I'd like to now look at some of the other factors that come into play with osteoporosis. If you are not menstruating, you choose 1 week of the month where you don't apply the cream. Some ladies choose to eliminate the first week or the last week of the month. Bones are not made of calcium. Is that shocking news? Bones are made of 4 trace minerals and 12 main minerals. Let's look at those 12 main minerals. Boron, and yes, calcium is one of them, and chromium, and iron, and magnesium, and manganese, and selenium, and silicon, and sulfur, and potassium, and phosphorus, and zinc. And 64 trace, that's what bones are made of. And so the worst thing you can do for your bones is take calcium supplements, because that's not what bones are made of. So how do we get this? Dr. Robert Thompson, in his book The Calcium Lie, he states that the clearest indicator of a creator God is seawater, because seawater has all these minerals in the exact balance and proportion that our body needs. And the good news is you don't have to drink seawater. You can buy salt that has all those minerals. Best is Celtic, and Celtic salt contains 82 minerals. That's the closest to seawater. Himalayan salt contains 75, so that's fairly close. Yes? Taking the minerals does help with the thyroid, but the thyroid needs iodine, and there is no salt that contains iodine. You see, when the waves of the sea crash, the iodine goes into suspension, moves across to the land and settles on the land. That's why food grown near the coast have a higher iodine content, and many people that live right in the middle of a country are more likely to be have thyroid problems because they don't have iodine. What about iodized salt? You see, seawater contains 92 minerals. Iodized salt contains 3, sodium chloride iodine. And when you open the iodine packet, within several hours, the iodine evaporates. There's no salt that has iodine. So how do we get our iodine? You can get it by eating food that's grown in coastal areas, or you can buy something called Lugol's solution. And Lugol's solution is a combination of iodine and iodide. So to help thyroid problems, it's good to get the Lugol's solution. Put it on your arm, there'll be a brown smudge, and notice how long it stays there. If it's gone in an hour, your iodine levels are low. If you've got some semblance of colour after 5 hours, your iodine levels are pretty good.
So is iodine safe for Hashimoto's? Or no, I've heard a lot of
There's a book by Dr. David Brownstein called Iodine, Why You Need It and Why You Can't Live Without It. And he states that under and overactive thyroid gland are both short in iodine. But something that's not often thought about is the body needs selenium to convert iodine into thyroxine. And if someone's got mercury fillings in their mouth, it gobbles up all the selenium. So mercury fillings in the mouth can be another contributing factor to problems. How do we use calcium? Put it on everything. I put it on everything. When I'm in a baked potato, I flood it with olive oil and smother my potato with calcium salt. Fantastic. Do you know, God gave us taste buds for a reason. Or you can have a little bit before every glass of water, about a crystal. And we'll talk about salt a bit more tomorrow. I think we're talking about heart tomorrow. Start very small, but these salts are minerals in their balance. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 13, the Bible says, "Ye are the salt of the earth. If the salt has lost its savour, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men." It's Old English. I love the rhyme of Old English. If the salt has lost its savour, I'd like to suggest that table salt has lost its savour.
So that's how you know that you don't have that when I use Crave. You can also actually salt for some.
Often when you crave salt, you're actually craving minerals. Did you know that the Navy in the war, if a man needed a blood transfusion, they would transfuse him with seawater? Because it is the exact same mineral balance and proportion as is found in the blood and as you see in the bones. So this is what bones need, is all these minerals in their balanced form. So you can get it from the Celtic salt and you can get it from dark green leafy vegetables. We should be eating dark green leafy vegetables every day. And when you cook dark green leafy vegetables, you do not lose minerals. Cooking does not destroy minerals. Pardon? I'm a bit hesitant of seaweed. And the reason I am because of the nuclear accidents that have happened in the sea, because of the amount of waste that's dumped in the sea. Well, what about the seawater? Well, the heavy metals and all the problems sink to the bottom of the sea, and the seaweeds and the fish take that up. So it might be in the fish and the seaweed, but the seawater is relatively clear because of the constant pounding of the waves purifying it. But I would not ever collect seawater near the sewerage outlets. So it's common sense there. Yeah? Do you use too much? It's not nice when too much goes in the food. Our palate really is our guide. What about? Sorry, I haven't heard of that.
Washington, Oregon, it's a volcanic crater.
Oh, it's a volcanic crater. Grows green algae. Well, that probably might be fairly safe. Yeah. So getting back to osteoporosis, our bones need minerals. Do you know the problem is many people are taking things that are leaching the minerals? What would leach the minerals? Caffeine. Caffeine is a big mineral leacher. Refined sugar, another big mineral leacher. A high acid diet leaches minerals because calcium, where are you calcium? Here's calcium. It's called the king, and that's why it's been misunderstood. Why is it called the king? Because when calcium gets in, all the other minerals piggyback on the back of calcium. Plus, it's the most alkaline mineral. So the body often uses calcium to negate an acid condition in the body. So when a person's eating a lot of acid-forming foods, which is your meats and your refined sugars and the hybridized wheat of today, remember our carbohydrate list? It's nearly all the hybridized wheat, and the teas and the coffees and the alcohol. All this creates a very acid condition, and so the body pulls the calcium out of the bone to negate that acid condition in the blood. So that's another contributing factor. So what's happening is not only are many foods mineral deficient, but people are taking stimulants that leach it out. So you put that into the equation of the hormonal imbalance, the mineral deficient foods, the stimulants that are leaching more. No wonder we've got so much osteoporosis. But there's another factor. Calcium cannot get into the cell without vitamin D. Vitamin D is essential for the assimilation and utilisation of calcium. And when calcium gets in, remember, all the other minerals piggyback on the back. How do we get vitamin D? What's vitamin D made from? Cholesterol. The ultraviolet rays from the sun, but there's only one ray that'll do it, it's UVB. Ultraviolet B rays. When they hit the skin, they convert a form of cholesterol just under the skin to vitamin D. And vitamin D is what is necessary to be able to use our calcium and get all the other minerals. So if someone's on cholesterol-lowering medication, it's quite possible they're able to make vitamin D. And the glass stops the UVB rays, and sunscreens totally stop UVB rays. So when Michael and I went on a holiday to Bali, and every day I went down and laid by the pool to get a suntan, I didn't have sunscreen, I had a clock. 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back, and then sat under the umbrella. I do that every morning and every night, and within 4 days I had a very nice tan. And my tan was a UVB tan. And that tan lasts a long time. And when I have that tan, I can endure much more sun. The darker the skin, the more sun you need. So how much sun do you need? Well, we've got a saying in Australia, how long's a piece of string? It can be an inch, it can be 10 inches. It all depends on your skin. So I have what they called milky skin. That's why I have a wife. Because if I'm there too long, I'll be burnt. And 6 to 10 sunburns in your lifetime can double your risk of skin cancer. But they're finding today that vitamin D deficiency is a big contributing factor to skin cancer. The sun's not the problem. The problem is many skins are fat deficient, cholesterol deficient, dehydrated, releasing chemicals that have been going into the body. So all of these factors, and as you've seen with many things we've looked at, it's often not just one thing or this, it's a whole lot of little things. A whole lot of little things that add up together to create the problem. And it didn't happen overnight. It's often many years in the making. So please access the sun. But if you have a shower and wash your body with soap and lie out in the sun, you'll get no vitamin D because you need oil on the skin, the natural oils, because the body uses the cholesterol just under the skin. But if you lie out in the sun and then go and have a shower and wash yourself with soap, you won't get any vitamin D because it takes about 2 hours for the body to develop that vitamin D. But if you're by the sea and you're lying in the sun and then you dive in the sea, you won't lose your vitamin D because you haven't scrubbed the oils away with soap. So to just have a shower with water will not wash your oils away. And your body stores vitamin D very well, but we do need some exposure to the sun. One lady was so scared of the sun because she had had skin cancer, she'd go put the clothes on the clothesline with a hat on, sunglasses, gloves, because remember we talked about the lies that often come, the media lies, that the sun's not the enemy, the sun's always been there. It's actually what we're doing in our body. And in a dehydrated body, that burns very easily. So we must be well hydrated. We must also have sensible, common sense exposure to the sun. Not too much and not too little. Because that vitamin D is essential for the utilisation of calcium. And once calcium gets in, remember it's called the king, because when it gets in, brings all the other minerals with it. And that's what our bones are made of. Minerals. So for strong bones and to turn osteoporosis around, we need sun exposure, we need a high mineral diet, which your organic fruits and vegetables will give you, especially your dark green leafies. We need the whole salt. And we need to balance the hormones to get more. Remember what progesterone boosts? Osteoblast cells. So osteoporosis will not have a turnaround until that progesterone level is nice and what it should be. But you can also strengthen the bones, yes?
Can you actually reverse osteoporosis and the bone height loss?
I've got some good news, you can. Did you hear that? Can you reverse osteoporosis? You can. In fact, I've had several ladies that have got back to me, one lady in her 80s, and she said, my bone density is improving, and she's 80. That's impressive. We live in an incredible body. It's a living organism and has the ability to regrow. But you can also strengthen your bones through exercise. What's the best bone building exercise? The best bone building exercise, in fact, the exercises that are the most powerful for strength is to defy gravity. Gravity defying exercises is using your own body as weight. And there is one exercise that defies gravity better than any other exercise, and that is trampolining. You're constantly defying gravity. But you know, not many people will get out on the trampoline, and so there's another little one you can buy called a rebounder. Have it in your house. And if you're not used to it, this is called the health bounce. You just start like that, and as you get braver, you can start leaping. Start jumping. So that's your best bone meal building exercises. You can even bounce on it with weights. And I strengthen my biceps by bouncing like that, and I strengthen my triceps by bouncing like that. So your bone building exercises, and don't forget the push-ups. We should all be doing push-ups every day. I did 25 this morning. And that's, you defying gravity every time you push yourself up. It's time to go into an exercise program so that we enjoy the latter years of our life. What you do in your 20s will be revealed in your 40s. What you do in your 40s will be revealed in your 60s. And I watched a documentary on the plane once that was on 100-year-old athletes. Did you get that? 100-year-old athletes. And muscle knows no age. Do you know what that means? Whether you're 9 or 90, you can have strong muscles. And the strength of the human body is determined by the strength of the core. And we should all have strong core muscles. I was talking to a man recently, in fact last Sunday, and he told me about a serious accident that he had. And he went to a pain clinic in Minneapolis, and they showed him how to strengthen his core, because all your core muscles are connected to your spine. And I think most people have had some sort of injury into their spine. So what's the best thing for your spine? Strengthen your core. And your core is very much strengthened by your push-ups, and also by rebounding. Because every jump, every single cell in your body is challenged and strengthened. And he told me that as you exercise, the pain specialist told him this, that as you exercise, as you build up those muscles that are all twirled around your bones, the more blood supply comes into those muscles, it feeds the bones and it actually can rebuild the bone. Exercise. How long do you have to jump? Start with 3 minutes 3 times a day. That's a good start. And then build up to it. But the bones need you to be well hydrated. The bones need you to sleep at night. Pelvic floor is strengthened by rebounding. One lady that had incontinence said, well, when I rebound, I lose a bit of urine. I said, well, just empty it in the toilet first and then rebound. But that just shows that that's the very muscle that's being strengthened. Again, just start small. Doesn't mean you have to start leaping immediately. Just start little by little to strengthen those bones. Unfortunately, many people from about 40 years and up stop exercising. And yet we need exercise more in those latter years than in our former years. And so that's the good news. We've seen people increase bone density, even in their 80s and 90s, by implementing the simple things we've looked at. So we've got 4 minutes for questions. Yes?
And you think it's the men, I was wondering if there's similar things that happen with men, hormonal imbalances, and what those cause?
Yes, so I did mention with men it's prostate problems, low sperm count and penile dysfunction. They can all be improved by what we've looked at.
Exercise with 5-pound weights or a back swing would psych out any incidents or that.
Yes, yes you can, lying down and sitting up with 5-pound weights, but the rebounding is a lot gentler and yet actually a lot stronger. Yeah? Often when someone suffers from migraines and I investigate, I find out they began when they began their period. So migraines can have a hormone factor, or migraines can be a result of a malalignment, maybe from an accident. So, or sometimes migraine can be from allergy for food. So it's important to investigate. One of the best things is to find out when it first began, and that can often give you an idea. And sometimes migraines can be due to dehydration. It can have a few factors. Yes? Yes. Yes, because you see, testosterone comes from progesterone too. In fact, one man said, this cream pencil. Next question? Yes?
How would you use bleeding excessively?
Bleeding excessively at period times is usually a result of fibroids. It can be a result of cysts. It can be a result of endometriosis. It can be a result, and it's all due to too much estrogen. One lady said within 1 month of beginning the Anna's Wild Yam Cream, her blood loss halved. Yes? Absorption of calcium is usually due to the vitamin D is necessary for the absorption of calcium. What do I think about the amino brags? It's certainly better than the soy sauce, but I don't use it. What I use is good quality salt, good quality oil, organic food, and lots of herbs. That's what I use for my flavour. In fact, I was cooking recently in a place I was staying, because I say I love cooking, can I cook? In 1 week, I used the herbs that they usually use in 6 months. I use a lot of herbs. Yes? Sorry, what mineral are we lacking when? Magnesium. Magnesium is the ultimate muscle relaxer. And so magnesium is often is what's lacking with muscle cramping. And you can get topical magnesium, which is an oil, magnesium oil that you apply to the skin. And Epsom salts baths, because Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. And one of the things I love about the Celtic salt is it has 3 magnesiums in it. Magnesium is a water-hungry molecule, that's why it's such a wet salt. Yeah?
For your juicing, how much protein did you add on the days that you added?
Okay, for on the juicing program, the protein, we usually give a teaspoon of protein powder, and on the Monday that's twice, and on the Tuesday it's 3 times. But if we have a Vietnam veteran do our program who's had a lot of exposure to chemicals, we'll give them a protein drink every single juice. Because remember, they need the protein to mop up the toxic metal. We use a pea protein. Pea. alkaline water with your meal, it'll interfere terribly with digestion because the stomach should be acid. But alkaline water can certainly help to alkalise the tissues, but I don't think I'd pay the money for an alkaline water machine. If someone's got an alkaline water machine, I said use and enjoy. But a squeeze of lemon in water can help to alkalise it. Mineralised water. Yeah, but it won't have a lot of minerals, not as much as you'll get in your Celtic salt. Yeah? There could be quite a few reasons why someone missed their period. Sometimes that can happen nearing menopause. Sometimes stress can cause that. There can be a few factors. Yes?
When you're doing the sauna and you talked about raising the temperature, approximately how many degrees do you want to raise the temperature before getting in the cold bath?
Oh, I don't know. We never measure it. We just say, go and have a cold shower when you can't handle the hot anymore.
Okay.
I'm not a great measurer, if that's a word. If my children had a fever, I never took their temperature. I just would feel them. I think, yeah, they're getting a bit hot. Might cool them down. Yeah.
What causes chronic low estrogen?
What causes chronic low estrogen? Low estrogen is fairly rare. Fairly rare. Yeah, it's not that common, and it could certainly be a lack of progesterone. But boosting progesterone will bring it up. Well, time's up. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Now, tomorrow the... Thank you.